Hello, welcome back to another video. In this one, we'll be covering for loops. Um, 2 videos ago, I mentioned that arrays were useful with for loops. So let's make an array. Let's put some numbers, just simple numbers, yeah. Now, if we wanted to do something to each element in an array, we would use a for loop. There's many types of for loops. There's like the normal, like the regular. I'll explain all of this. This might look a bit complicated, but I'm gonna split it into pieces. So here we declare a variable that's inside of this code block, or inside of the scope, which we set it to 0. Here we say the condition when the for loop stops, and here we say what happens every time that the for loops run. So if we do array and then index I, array index I is basically like the like this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and that's the index. Like this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, this is index 3. Array.length is a property of arrays, and it is like the size of it. So if we do array console.log array, then it's gonna put in the console. What did I do? Okay. So if we do node dot, you see it puts the values. Now we could do other values like this, or any other values. It doesn't have to be in ascending or descending order. Just it's gonna put the like this code is just gonna put the values of this array. Okay. Now you could make it so that it makes the array. So what I mean is that we do like it's a 10, like it's until this, like if it's 10 then don't do the loop and stop it. So here we would do array dot push. Push is a method to add items, like it says new elements to the array. Append a new element to the array. So it just adds an element at the end. So if we do array.push and then we do I, for example, and then we could make another for loop. And since these variables, they don't interfere with each other due to the, like it's being only inside the scope, only inside of here. It's not in the global scope, like it's not everywhere. It's only in this, and it's only here. Array.length is the length of the array. So we do array dot console dot log array. We get like oh wait, I forgot. Sorry, it's array I because it's array index I, and then we get all of the values from the array. We could add an offset, so let's say +10 for example, and it would make the offset. So now it's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now these are the most basic for loops. There's others. So if we want to just keep this array to be like that, we could use something called a for in, and there's off. Let's first start with in. It's kind of an older method, but it might still be used for objects. If you would like to do for loops for objects, maybe, I don't know. So it's key in array. Well, we could say value in array. Then console.log value. Oh, because I haven't declared it, I need to declare it. So now does it show that's a property? Yes. Here we get the thing, the indexes. So we would do array and then value. So here we get the results because this value is the key. Now if you use auth, then it's like more of a like, now it isn't the indexes, now it's the actual values. So it depends if you want to use the indexes or if you want to use the value itself. Now, there's another one which is called array.forEach. It's a method inside of array that takes in another function as a parameter. We'll cover functions in another video, but it's a bit more like complicated. But this, which I'll explain in the functions video, is an arrow function. But yeah, it's, you don't need to worry about it just yet, but just know that it's like a way for not needing to copy paste the code exactly. Like, you don't need to, if you had like, let's say we had some code that does like stuff, you don't need to copy paste it around all around. You can just use functions that do the same thing. There is other ways to optimize your code, but functions would be a good way. Now in array.forEach we would use something like this. It would be an arrow function taking value as a parameter. I'll cover arrow functions if and functions themselves. Just know that a parameter is basically like an input, and like this is what it does with the inputs, and it might return an output. So if we do console.log value, it's basically like the auth type. So that is basically like all of it, or all of for loops, except if you want to do like, let's say you wanted to repeat code many times consecutively. Let's say you wanted to console.log array, okay? Then it's just gonna put it 10 times in the console. If you wanted to consecutively repeat code, you can make it a bit more complex with if statements. You can declare variables inside of them. Just note that those variables will only be available inside of this code block because it's inside the scope. I'll cover scopes in another video, but just know that if you declare a variable here, it won't be accessible here. So if we use variable, it's not accessible and it doesn't detect. Yeah, it says it's not, but never read, because this is not in, like, variable is not in the same scope. But if we were to use it here, then it's used. So just note that. It also happens with if statements, that if we have like stuff inside of the if statements, then it would, yeah, basically scopes. Just if there's like a code block, then just know that that's literally just all a scope, and that if you put a variable inside of here, it can't be accessed there. I'll cover scopes in another video, as I said, but yeah, just like a warning. Now, I forgot to mention about console.log. Console.log is in the introductory video. Console.log is basically, you can put you can do it like with commas to put different like values. You can use strings, as I said. You can use strings. You can basically use any type. You can also concatenate. So concatenating is like array. You put a string plus a value, and then it just adds it, basically. But there's a newer version which is more like, if you do this and then array, for example, and then we use like, it's with the backticks instead of with the quotations or the apostrophes. then if you use a dollar symbol and then these things like the curly brackets, then you can get values from other places. So we can get array value, which will, yeah, and you can, like, instead of needing to worry about concatenation, like spacing and stuff, you can just do it in one string. Just make sure that in that one string it's all correct, like as if you were saying it. Like, yeah, just make sure that there's a space here, because if there isn't, it's just gonna think that it's like there's no string, there's no space. So just be careful with that type of concatenation, and with the other one too. Um, so that's been for loops and an extra console.log for you. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.